You're listening to The Conversation with Model Mind AI, a weekly check-in with Angela Schultz and Lauren Horsager on how to lead through change, stay curious, and get AI ready.
Welcome to The Conversation. Today, we're introducing someone new to the Model Mind team, and we're doing it through the lens that matters most to our audience: how leaders use technology to think, decide, and lead. Darrin Strosdahl joins Model Mind as a trainer and AI coach. He brings a long history of experience in leadership, particularly in education and administration, and a consistent through line of using technology to really amplify his impact. This conversation is about getting to know Darrin, not through a resume, but through how technology has shaped the way he leads, trains, and solves problems. Welcome, Darrin.
Hey, Angela, great to be with you. I've enjoyed getting to know you and working with you. So I'm glad to be part of the Model Mind team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we both come from an educational background, but lean into technology, and that's where we are today here at Model Mind. So I just want to start by really grounding this conversation in the technology we've used in the past, present, and hopefully into the future. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe a leadership role that you've held in the past, but specifically speak to what technology stood out at that time, and how it really elevated the ability for you to do your job in leadership specifically.
Absolutely. So I do have a long career path that starts, in education as a teacher and then all the way through activities director, community ed director, high school principal, superintendent, college academic dean, all those different things, vice president of academic affairs, statewide nonprofit executive director, all those things. But the reality is the technology piece is the piece that has really been changing so rapidly, right? Because
Mhm.
you enter into these positions, these leadership positions, mainly because it enables you to help others. And that's really where the satisfaction comes, is helping others. And technology's rapid pace of change means that we as leaders have responsibilities to evaluate what tools we implement, when we implement, how do we measure for effectiveness, those types of things. So I'll just give you a couple quick examples from different roles. So as a high school principal, for example, we used to do attendance on paper, right? Each classroom, each hour. And then we moved to a digital process and having teachers take attendance in their classroom. And actually, as I tracked it, our accuracy went down when we moved to a digital process. So we had to revert back to paper for a while because making sure that we were accurate was more important than being efficient. So I think that's a little bit of the responsibility piece. Um, as technology is a useful way, as a kind of a counter example to that, is that we have our student data management system where we have our grades and those things, and we have our state testing results in another system, and then we have which students are taking remedial courses in college, and that's in a different system. And so we got data in all these different places, and I kind of called it, at the time, I called it a data flirt because it was like there was no interface amongst these, and it was like flirting because you had this data, you wanted to tie it together, you wanted to investigate, and you knew there were things you could learn, but it was so tedious to do it by hand. And so I did it. I muddled through it and I did it by hand. And I discovered that 3 years in a row, every single student who graduated from our high school who had to take remedial math classes in college chose to not take math their senior year. It was 100% correlation 3 years in a row.
Yes.
And I share that not because I want to make sure that everyone should take math their senior year, which I think they should. However, I'm saying that, we went from a manual process to now we have tools that can access data from different places and pull them together. But more importantly, we have accessibility for an individual to improve what they do with data and how they can investigate. So I just think that's really an important piece to that. And then I'll give you one last example of this, which I think is the most powerful, and this is where AI really got me excited, is, in my work as a superintendent or a vice president of academic affairs, even as a statewide nonprofit executive director, strategic planning was really
Mm.
work. And the quality of the process for strategic planning is critical. we're always striving to how do we get folks to participate and how do we gain their voice? And that is really such an important piece to that stakeholder engagement. And our old methods were limited to surveys and committees, right? And or maybe town halls. And so many of those times, especially if it was verbal, a dominant voice would just take over, right? Somebody
Mm.
would, not that they wanted to be a bully, but they just were so dominant in their views and so expressive that it started to limit other people. And this is where AI really got me excited because I used AI, and that was incredible because what it did is it moved away from that dominant voice, and AI allowed us to instead individualize each person's interactions with other person's thoughts. So digitally, they could respond and they could see thoughts that were similar, those that were maybe contour. They really weren't going on the same plane. And so it was really interesting because then you could have people interacting with different thoughts, they could react. Those reactions were then captured, and then that could be analyzed and captured instantly with AI. And so that's really what was amazing to me because, when you're trying to provide thought leadership to a group and you really want to capture their voice, and you know that you're smarter when you have a diversity of thought versus just one individual, that's where to me AI became really powerful because it just increased our abilities. And that's the type of thing where I think AI gets me excited.
Yeah, I think I was in attendance of one of your big conferences where they had this technology deployed at the conference, and I was in a room
hmm
full of hundreds of people, and we were all kind of sharing our input. Is that something of,
That's
of what you're speaking to?
that's exactly it. And as a
Okay,
participant, how did that feel, right? Was that different for you?
right. So 100%. For one, it was engaging. You got my attention, and I got to be part of the conversation rather than just being a passive receiver of information. But what it did was it actually kind of built some buzz at our table, um, as a personal conversation. But then I got to see what the person on the other side of the room was also bringing to our table, which kind of opened our eyes up to another perspective. So it was really connecting, but at the same time, it really encouraged conversation, kind of in a small group as well. So I saw it as a way to communicate effectively, but the process from me as a receiver of it was really exciting, and it was so different than, I've been to every conference under the sun, and it was really exciting to be part of the conversation. And I think even in some of our training courses, I try to encourage people not to use AI in isolation. So many people are using it on their phone or at their desk, but not in meetings or not at conferences or not at this kind of strategic planning like you're talking about. And um, yeah, great experience, great use case of AI for sharing information. And I think that's a big part is we have knowledge at our fingertips, but we have to really share in this process of problem solving or strategic planning. So whatever that tool was called, it was a blast, and I encourage. Do you remember the name of it?
Absolutely. So, thought exchange. And what's really cool about this is that's truly what we're doing, right? We're taking, when we're trying to be an advocate, right? Like that's what I think in terms of responsibility of leadership is to be an advocate for others. How can you help them? What
Hmm.
can you do in those ways? And that's really what you're trying to do in strategic planning. You're trying to capture this person's perspective and its thought and compare it to this one over here and this one over here, and they might prioritize totally different things. But where are the spots where alignment occurs and where
Mm,
is the division? And are there ways to connect the alignment to the division? Where are the meeting points? And really, I just think that's what's so powerful is that AI allows us to do that in a way that allows everyone to know that this is an open invitation.
mhm,
And that's what was really amazing. And so again, like I've used it in the settings of the statewide conference that you've seen. I've used it with boards. I've used it as sort of like the annual meeting type of setting, the
mhm,
same way, and
mhm.
across different areas. And it's really something that I think AI will just expand in its use for those types of situations where it actually makes you better at your job because you are connecting more so with people.
Mhm. And I will say, AI is making everything very easy or very accessible. Easy is maybe not a better word. Accessible, approachable, because this tool here, it was a quick QR code. I was logged in seconds and it was up and running within a minute. Like this was not a process that required a lot of time and energy on the user, which I'm finding also in our trainings, this idea that AI is accessible or these types of tools are accessible to the general population. You don't have to have this specialty set of skills necessarily to be invited into this type of conversation, which is really exciting. I do want to circle back just for a moment though.
Sure.
I love that you started out with a story when I asked you how technology was part of your leadership. You actually brought up a story where the technology wasn't as great as it maybe was first thought to be, right?
Right.
And I think that's where the other component of this is we're not handing off all of our decision making. We're not handing off all of our problems to technology or AI. This idea of human in the loop is so important. And I think the more educated and the more fluent people are in how AI operates, I think they start to recognize the value of their judgment, similar to what you were saying, where we thought this was going to solve our problems, but in the end, it was actually not as effective of a tool. Now, using that same tool maybe in a different avenue or maybe the training needs to be in, we need to get involvement from everybody. But I do think it's a valuable lesson that we need to constantly be evaluating when tech is maybe overhyped or used in the wrong method, and when it is kind of a benefit to us. So we got a little bit of both from you, which I appreciate. Um, I feel like I learn just as much from people's wins as I do from their failures. So I appreciate you giving us a little bit of both, good and bad, of technology.
It's interesting because as you describe that, as I think about leadership responsibility, what I was doing way back when, right, compared to implementing AI, a lot of the aspects are similar, right? Because at the
Mhm,
time when we were talking about school attendance, I was working with an older staff. I mean, for example, the one teacher had literally been teaching in the same classroom for as long as I had been alive at that point, right? So, I
right.
mean, like a long time.
Yeah.
Terrific teacher, terrific. So,
Hmm.
but the reality was the technology was so new that the staff across the board, some could do it, some couldn't, but our accuracy went down, right?
Hmm.
So when you think about the tool, you got to also think about the people that are going to use it and how do you help them? How do you get them ready to go, right? I mean, and those types of things. I think it's the same with AI. Some people
Hmm.
are ready and some people have a kind of sort of a natural piece to it, and others, hey, no, this is just not for me. I don't even know about it. I don't know how to navigate. I don't even know how to drive. Like, well,
Hmm.
okay. So I think it's the same, right? You're trying to
Hmm.
figure out the technology that grows such a rapid pace, AI. How can you use AI to help other people? Because that's really your leadership responsibility as I see it.
Yeah, and I mean that's a tough position to be in because you're trying to anticipate the needs of your people and you're trying to help them. I remember even my story in education is I've always been a person who if I see a new button, I click the new button. Like I love exploring what's possible with technology. And a lot of times leaders would purchase new products or implement new software and I would be all in. I'd use it for 6 months and then I'd go to use it the next day and it would be gone. I'd be like, what happened to my new tech? And they're like, oh, nobody was using it, so we got rid of it. I'm like, no,
Right.
right? And so how do you, I think that is happening, especially now where there's kind of this surge or um, this need. We're surrounded by the word AI, right? And so people are anxious to begin at least the journey of adopting this AI and transforming their companies. But how do you get the people to engage or to get buy-in? Because it's not a smooth road anytime you're changing or making an adoption of a product. So as a leader, I think you bring a good perspective of what are some of your past tips and tricks to kind of get everybody on the same page and moving in the right direction?
Right. And I think the first piece starts with, your intention and your motivation. Is it literally like, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who can I help? How can I help? Right? Those are the real key questions. And when I think about AI and I think about, people are our driving force, as a leader, I would initially, my thoughts would jump to, all right, so who's on my team that's like close to burnout? Or maybe they're in burnout, right? Like you can just tell, like they're overworked. Oh my gosh. Well, what can we do to make life more efficient for them? How can AI bring them back? Because you do not want to lose those folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I would think about the next group of people I would think about are who are my creative staff? Because
Mm-hmm.
AI ramps up your creativity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Naturally curious. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can we help those? Like, where would those folks, reside in the organization? And then I would think next, I would think, all right, who are the folks that have deep institutional knowledge, right? And that might be a technical knowledge, that might be a process knowledge. Who are those folks that really have that deep institutional knowledge? And unfortunately, oftentimes what happens is the knowledge resides, but it doesn't let the other folks who could benefit from it. There's not enough connection points, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there becomes too much separation. So I think about those folks and I think about, all right, so how can AI capture and share knowledge and make connections? And then another group I would think of is when we think about deep institutional knowledge, again, whether it's technical or process, think about transition. Transition and turnover is going to happen. You're going to lose a key person, right? That one person who knows, or you're going to lose a team. Oh my gosh, right? Like that can be a major handicap. So what do you do with that? Well, AI can help with those things, right? You can do
Mm-hmm.
that and capture that. Think of, the one that's maybe the easiest to think of is that administrative assistant,
Mm-hmm.
right? He or she really knows the details, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people go, well, that's the person who really runs the show, right? I mean, like you just know, right, that there
Mm-hmm.
are those folks, and it's like they're so valuable, right? And they're great people. So how can you help them? I think that's where AI fits in, and that's would be kind of my advice as to leaders thinking about this. I would think about groups of people and some of those, and it'd be like, who can I help? How can I help? And then that'll transition into all the pieces of like, well, we're trying to get this work done, or we're trying to increase our sales here, or we're trying to improve our supply chain management here, or whatever it is. Those pieces will come because you are focusing in on the strengths that you have and making those strengths even stronger. And so then they'll work to solve the problems that you really have.
So I love, I mean, you're such a strategic thinker, and I can already tell why AI is so aligned with how you think and how you operate. I almost feel like your mind is how they base some of their model thinking off of. So you're a great pair for AI. But it brings up the question. So in the past, we have purchased kind of these off-the-shelf technologies that then the company or the group kind of onboards, right? And starts baking into their everyday experience. Is there any type of shift or maybe a different way of thinking of what used to be a software that you would purchase? Now we're really adopting this AI way of thinking and working and operating. And I think people are having a hard time understanding or differentiating between how they're similar, but also how this technology is very different than maybe what we've been used to for the last 20 years. Do you have any thoughts on the differentiation between the two and how we have to kind of shift our mindset when it comes to kind of onboarding this new tech or working with the new tech?
So I kind of think of AI as kind of both, actually. In
Okay.
one hand, I kind of think of it sort of like a software in that it's a tool that you get to use, right?
Yeah.
When I think of like, I don't care, let's pick something, whether it be an accounting software, we can even make it simpler. Let's make it Excel or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a CRM that we're managing all of our customer data in, or a student management system, any of those types of things, databases. The reality is you have to know how to navigate. right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to drive, you don't know where am I supposed to click? Where's the drop down
Mm-hmm.
menu? What are the shortcut keys? Some of it is just knowing how to drive and how to navigate. So you can teach somebody, I need you to go in and do these 6 steps, and they can use the program, but that doesn't mean that they're a master of the program,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they can just they can accomplish a task with it. So in some ways, AI is that way because you do have to know how to navigate and how to drive. On the other hand, and this is what I think differentiates AI, um, from my perspective as I'm learning about it, is AI really is a tool that helps you improve yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so you might have, like, we'll go back to the data piece of, like, which students need to take remedial math. Now you have the accessibility to pull things in from different sources, and you can figure out how to do that as an individual person. Like, I don't necessarily have to call somebody in my tech department or in my
Mm-hmm.
data resources area and say, or my institutional research department and say, can you help me this? I'd like you to run this query for me. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, no, actually, you have access now that you can figure out how to do these things, and AI can help you do it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
all of those types of things. And so that's where I think it becomes different. And I also think that it's different because as a leader, it changes your responsibilities of, again, trying to think about which technology you're going to implement when and how you're going to measure its effectiveness, because it comes back to that same question: who can I help and how can I help them? How you help them with AI is different than how you help them learn a program. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I can just give you some technical training. I can give you a direction sheet. Do step 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, that's different than, let me teach you how to use AI. And once that team member understands how to use AI, now they can take that and apply it to their real work, the problems that they really see, the things that as a leader I don't see because I'm not there on the front line, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not interacting directly with the customer or whatever this scenario may be. I may not be in the research lab. Okay, now you've changed the game, because that again, I think, is where you go with, how you think about AI and applying that. And I think that's one of the things that I really am enjoying about Model Mind. Model Mind is, it's not training, right? It's training of a process and coaching. It's the attitude of, hey, I would love to come alongside you and help you get better at using AI, right? Like, that's the
Mm-hmm.
attitude at Model Mind. Like, we're not doing the work for you. We're not going to
Mm-hmm.
write this program or create this piece for you. We're going to make sure that you know how to do it, help you do it, support you as you do it, so that you grow your skill, and then you can be better at it. And that's what I like. So that was probably a long-winded answer to your question, but that's what it made
No,
me think of.
I love it. I think I can, as you were talking, I thought of a way to kind of summarize. If I were ChatGPT and you asked me to summarize what you just said, what I basically heard you say is, we're not trying to teach people what to think. We're trying to teach them how to think. Because this new technology, it's almost like you have to just show them what's possible. But then also, a big part of what you and I are doing in the training world or the coaching world is making those applications for them meaningful and connecting, like, okay, this is possible with AI, but how does that impact your day or your company or your pain points, whatever it may be? And really trying to kind of do some solution focused ideas, but incorporating the power of AI alongside of it. And
Right.
I couldn't agree more. That's one of my favorite things is, I'm not tasked to solve somebody's problems. Um, I'm tasked to really kind of offer that guidance, and we're talking to people every day who are using AI. So we hear a lot of great ideas that we can steal and grab and reshape and kind of be a share it all culture rather than a know it all culture, right? And so
Absolutely.
we're really trying to empower people. And you mentioned earlier where you feel like it's making you better at your job, and that's the goal, because it doesn't matter what department you're in, what role you have. you have something of value to that company. And the more we can tap into the value that each person brings, um, the better we can be, and the faster you can move and the better you can move. Would you say, I'm finding that AI just makes me enjoy my job more? Would you agree? Like, is there a part of your day that has been, for the better, incorporating, say, even ChatGPT? Nothing crazy like automation or an agent, but just some of the basic platforms that are out there now.
Yeah. So, having well over 30 years in education and then retiring out and saying, all right, I want to do something different or new. What's that going to be? And it needs to fit into the time frame that you want. What's really been neat to me is that AI does just that because I'm naturally curious. I love to learn. And the
Mhm.
AI training, the AI coaching, it helps me learn because what's most interesting is if you can help people and then you can see how they're applying AI across different industries, and these are really smart people and they're creating winning outcomes. That part is so much fun to me, right? Like
Mhm.
it's just like I'm the type of guy like I love to watch a show of like how is it made or something like that, right? Like
Yeah.
or give me the history. I love to read history. I'm the type of person who will just read every single thing as you go through the museum, right? I mean, so it's like those kind of things I think are really amazing to me. And that's where I think AI is helpful in that it does make life more enjoyable because you can just learn more.
Yeah, yeah. It's so accessible, right? And you just mentioned like three different hobbies. And so I will say being able to kind of connect those in your
Hmm.
problem solving can be really powerful as well. We're not in these compartmentalized areas anymore. It's more of a broad perspective when you're starting to problem solve, and AI can kind of bring those different perspectives. Well, when you're working with, because now you're working with, a variety of different leaders in a variety of different industries. So let's say there's a crisis. I'm curious kind of your approach to helping people kind of on board with this new technology. So if they have a crisis or a challenge at their company, kind of share a little bit of your process of how you go from crisis to kind of formulating a challenge that they need to, or a problem they need to solve, and then through implementation. Because a big part of what we do here at Model Mind is that kind of walk you through, right? From beginning to
Hmm.
middle to end, and kind of just be there beside you, giving that guidance and expertise. So maybe share with us a little bit about how you are coaching these leaders through some of this kind of uncharted territory.
Right. Well, I think you made the most important connection there when you talked about, what it is that people have, and it's their knowledge, right? It's their expertise in their area, whether it's in manufacturing or whether it's in accounting or whether it's in insurance or, you pick the field. It's that individual knowledge that people have. There's expertise, right? And as a coach, you will never have the expertise that all these folks have within their particular job, within their company, within their nonprofit organization, within the whatever. And so that's where you really start is, and I think that's where AI's power comes from, is because it takes that expertise that each individual has in their job and in their role, which is different across the company even,
Mhm.
and then it expands that. And it's an opportunity to be able to apply that expertise that they have and expand it so it can grow and solve problems. And that's really where solutions usually are rooted, is someone who really knows the details of that. And then there's a perspective that allows that to be analyzed, sometimes from a different perspective. And that's what AI helps us with. I mean, it's sort of, I don't want to simplify this too much, but I will. In trying to explain that even more is, I'm an ag guy, so
Mhm.
that sounds real simple, and it is, because if you're an ag person, then things have to work and they have to make sense.
Mhm.
It's literally that's what it is. Things have to work and they have to make sense, and that's most of the time what I mean, leaders are looking for. They're looking for things that work and that make
Mm-hmm.
sense. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other thing, if you're an ad person, that what matters has to be cared for. If it matters, you better be
Mm-hmm.
caring for it. And if you care for it, then you know that you have to feed it for it to grow. Because what gets fed grows. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly the same thing with leaders, right? They have to be able to really focus in and say, hey, this is what matters. This is what we care about. And this is what we're going to do to make sure it grows. And when you do that, then you get your harvest. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
whole piece that, Model Mind fits that model, right? Like, hey, I want to come alongside you, elbow to elbow. I'm going to help you do this because what matters to you? And that's what you start with folks, whether they're in crisis or whether they're doing strategic planning. Either way, the focus has to be what matters. What
Mm-hmm.
do you want to grow? What are you going to care about? And so then what are we going to do? And as you do that, you increase your skill as an individual person, you increase the skill of your team, you apply AI in the way that makes sense, that helps solve those problems, and that's when you get the growth, right? I mean, that's the harvest part.
Yeah, and even that process you just described, even those questions that you would propose to the leaders, that process is so valuable because once you go through it, let's say it's a 3-month onboarding coaching process, but at the end of that 3 months, you have a whole new skill set. You have a whole new, you created this communication amongst departments and the people in the industry, and hopefully that will just continue to evolve as well. So 3 months of invested time and energy into something can really change the trajectory of your, not only the people you work for but the people you work with as well, right? That's
Absolutely.
pretty powerful. I love that. Okay, we're almost to the end here. I am curious. I always like to kind of end with this single question. What is one question that I haven't asked you that I should ask you?
How about something about questions that I think leaders should be asking or should ask more often or something like that? How about something like that?
Perfect. What questions should leaders be asking? You
So I
did my
think,
job for me. Thank you. That's normally what I do with ChatGPT at the end of a task or a project. I always say, what am I missing? What should have I done? So I'm kind of recreating my AI process here with you. So thank you for giving me a good question to end with. What questions should leaders be asking?
so I think right now, I think it still is this as simple as who can I help and how can I help? And I'll frame that around or add some more depth to that. And the reality is that if business leaders are thinking about what they should be asking about AI and technology right now, I think it begins with which people can be helped the most by AI and how can I accelerate their growth?
Mm,
Thinking about that in your team. And if you haven't started yet, then the question is how do we explore so we can find our way forward? Because in my mind, this is such a time of discovery. AI is
mm,
changing so rapidly and it can do things today, but more importantly, it's going to do even more tomorrow. So the
mm-hmm.
exploration is needed so that you can be ready to benefit in the future. So those are the questions that I think about. And if you're a leader and you've already started on this, then the question is how can you upskill yourself and your team in the best manner for your organization on a wider path? And so those are the questions that I think really as leaders, those are where our responsibilities fall when I think about AI and technology.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I couldn't be more excited that you're joining us here at Model Mind. I love your background and how you've been helping people for a long time, and now you get to help people here at Model Mind. So, if you're interested in learning more about Model Mind or working with myself or Darrin, please feel free to reach out to us at modelmind.ai. We would love to. Help you through this exploration of this new place and this new time. And you're right, it's changing rapidly. So don't feel like you have to know everything. A lot of times, do you ever feel, Darrin, like you're learning alongside of them because it's happening so quickly?
Absolutely. I
It's
think
a
this is a
wild
time
time.
of it's a time of discovery, right? Like
It
let's
is.
discover together. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned fun because I do agree. I think sometimes it can feel like a burden to onboard or adopt a new technology, but this one I feel like makes it um, it is fun because you can instantly feel pretty successful pretty quickly. It's not this 1 year rollout. It's like within 24 hours, you can really start to make some changes and some discoveries and have some fun with it. So I couldn't agree more. Happy to have you here at Model Mind. Thank you so much, Darrin, for joining us on today's conversation. And I can't wait to have more conversations.
That
What's
sounds really
next?
great.
What's
That sounds
next,
really
right?
great.
Who knows? Check in next month and we'll have a new direction, a new idea, and some new opportunities for all your leaders. So thank you, Darrin, so much for joining us and looking forward to more.
You bet. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being part of the conversation with Model Mind AI. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and stay curious.